This question seems to come in every hour, and that is true. We see this all the time. Where did
Sure.
all the water go after the flood?
Well, actually, I'm going to name four places. Number one, some of it never went away. Remember, I said that before the flood, 40% of the Earth's surface was dry land. If you'd been in a satellite looking down at the Earth from creation of the flood, 40% of the Earth's surface would be dry land. That's from creation. Again, there were some islands. We have the absolute physical proof that there were some islands, but most of it fit together. But today, we have only 30% dry land and 70% water surface on the Earth. And that 40% before the flood was basically all capable of growing vegetation. Today, of course, we have high mountains and polar ice caps and so forth, where not all of it can be. But why did we go from 40 to 30? Well, the continental shelves, which were dry land from creation of the flood, are now covered with water. So, number one, and some of the biggest part of the answer is some of it never went away. Number two, the polar ice caps. Remember that there were no polar ice caps before the flood. Now we are adding a mile thick layer of water coming from below at the time of the flood. The water is at roughly 900 degrees Fahrenheit when it comes up. The Earth gets hotter at roughly 90 degrees Fahrenheit per mile as you go down. So we're talking about roughly 900 degree hot water coming up. And it's mixing with warm tropical seas that existed from creation of the flood. So the oceans are now full of a lot of water that's really hot. And you know that the hotter the water, the warmer the water, the faster it evaporates. And because the Earth has cracked open, and we're talking about a 40,000 mile long, what's called the Mid-Oceanic Ridge or the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, or various places has names for portions of it, but the whole thing is the Mid-Oceanic Ridge. It's 40,000 miles long. This is where the hot water came from below. Now, it's mixing with the water, but because the Earth is cracked open, it cracks open more. And so thousands and thousands of volcanoes go off at the same time. Now, again, we have absolutely modern evidence to prove that this is true, but the volcanic action of literally thousands of volcanoes going off at the same time puts volcanic ash and aerosols into the atmosphere, blocking out sunlight, shading the Earth. This causes the atmosphere to get cold very, very fast. But the hot moisture coming up from the oceans, because of this warm water mixed with even hotter water, gives you the perfect conditions to form polar ice caps. And so phenomenal amounts of water rose up out of the oceans and then came down in precipitation as ice and snow, forming the polar ice caps. Now that is a lot of water. Towards the end of the flood, the volcanic action slows down, the atmosphere clears out, the heat comes back into the atmosphere, and the ice age ends. And the ice literally melts back to roughly where it is today. But there's tremendous amounts of ice and what was water coming out of the oceans that's in the polar ice caps. And of course, some of it evaporated into the atmosphere, and that's a minor thing. But number four, and most people don't think about it, is the Great Marine Trenches. Before the flood, there were no Great Marine Trenches. The Marianas Trench, the Puerto Rican Trench, didn't exist before the flood. But they formed during the flood, and you can put a lot of water in a trench that's 7 miles deep. And so I would reiterate the 4 points. One, some of it never went away. Today we have the continental shelves. A lot of it went into the polar ice caps, more than today, but it melts back to where it is today. Some slight amount of evaporation stayed in the atmosphere, of course, and the Great Marine Trenches. And so you have 4 places that the water went.